Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something really quite counterintuitive. It's this idea that chasing happiness, like relentlessly, might actually be what's making us miserable. We're digging into an audio source that honestly challenges a lot of modern self-help thinking. Our mission today, to pull out the key insights, give you a genuinely different perspective on, living a good life. We're going to question some conventional wisdom, look at some surprising facts, some really thought-provoking stuff, and explore why maybe, just maybe, embracing a bit of negativity, choosing your struggles, that might be the real secret to fulfillment. Okay, so let's unpack this. The source kicks off with, well, a pretty surprising figure, Charles Bukowski. By most standards, an alcoholic, womanizer, gambler, poet, definitely not your typical self-improvement guru.
Hardly, yeah.
But his life, or at least his path to success, seems to hold some kind of profound truth, according to this source. I mean, decades of trying to be a writer, just rejection after rejection, her then into this alcohol-fueled depression. Then, bang, at 50, some small indie publisher takes the chance. He gets the deal, writes Post Office, his first novel, in like 3 weeks. Sold millions eventually.
And what's really fascinating there, it kind of flips the usual script, right, is that we love framing stories like Bukowski's as, he never gave up, he believed in himself, all that. But his tombstone literally says, don't try.
Don't try. Wow.
Yeah. The source argues his success wasn't from trying to be a winner. It was from knowing he was, well, in his own view, a loser, accepting it, and then just writing about it with brutal honesty. He wasn't trying to be something he wasn't. And that just flies in the face of this modern obsession we have, be happier, be healthier, be the best. This relentless positive pressure.
That reframing through Bukowski, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? But let's get into this positivity movement itself. The source says focusing only on the positive, it actually highlights what you lack. How does that work?
Well, yeah, think about it. You try to make more money. Why? Because you feel you don't have enough. You stand in the mirror doing affirmations, usually because you don't feel beautiful enough. So the very act of trying to get the positive reminds you constantly of what you perceive you're not.
Oh, okay.
And the source makes this great point, like a genuinely happy person doesn't need to tell themselves they're happy. They just are.
Right.
And this whole cycle, this pursuit, can trap us in what the source calls the feedback loop from hell.
The feedback loop from hell, that's memorable. What is that exactly? And how does social media, the whole my life is cooler than yours thing, feed into it?
It's basically getting anxious about being anxious, or getting angry about getting angry, or guilty about feeling guilty.
Ah, okay, doubling down on the negative feeling.
Exactly. You judge the emotion, which just amplifies it. It's like adding wood to the fire. And our modern society, with consumer culture, social media feeds filled with perfection, it basically tells us that feeling bad, anxious, scared, whatever, is just not okay.
Right, like it's a personal failing.
Yeah. Whereas, maybe back in our grandparents' day, if you felt bad, you just kind of accepted it more. Like a big feeling rough today, part of life. Now you see everyone else's highlight reel and think, what's wrong with me for feeling this way?
So the core idea then from the source is not giving a chef about feeling bad, which sounds, maybe a bit harsh. Or like apathy.
Right. It sounds like indifference, but the source is clear. It's not that. It's about accepting that, yeah, the world's kind of messy. Totally F is the phrase used. And that's okay. It's always been messy.
Okay.
The key insight is this. Wanting more positive experience is, in itself, a negative experience. Because you're focused on what you lack.
Huh. Okay.
But paradoxically, accepting your negative experience, that is actually a positive experience.
That's the twist.
That's the twist. It's what the philosopher Alan Watts called the backwards law. The harder you chase feeling good, the more it runs away. True contentment often comes when you just accept the discomfort, embrace what is.
That is a really profound shift. And building on that, the source brings in this ancient story, the Buddha, right? The prince, whose father tried to shield him from all suffering. Perfect life, luxury.
Yeah, total bubble.
But he felt empty, dissatisfied. Then he sneaks out, sees real suffering sickness, old age, death for the first time, and it triggers this huge existential crisis. He realizes pain, loss, they're just part of the deal. We can't resist them forever.
Exactly. And this story raises a really important question for us today. What if happiness isn't some, algorithm, like do X, Y, Z, and then you unlock happiness?
Right.
What if dissatisfaction, unease? What if they're not bugs in the system? What if they're inherent, maybe even biologically useful?
Useful? How so?
Well, the source suggests suffering is kind of nature's preferred way to kickstart change. We evolved to be slightly dissatisfied, always a bit uneasy. Why? Because that's what drives us. It
Wow.
drives innovation, survival, striving. That little bit of grit in the oyster.
So our pain is a feature, not a bug, like stubbing your toe tells you where the furniture is.
Precisely. It's meant to spur action, make you pay attention, learn your limits.
Okay, so if suffering is a feature and problems never really go away, they just
Yeah.
change, right? Like the source says, Warren Buffett has money problems, just, better money problems than someone on the street.
Right. Different level, same basic structure. Problem arises, you deal with it, new problem arises.
So life is just this endless series of problems. Where does happiness fit in then?
Happiness, according to this view, comes from solving the problems. It's in the doing. It's an action, an activity, not something you just stumble upon passively.
And the source points out two ways people tend to mess this up. Avoid solving problems.
Yeah, two main failure modes. First, denial. Pretending the problems don't exist gives you a short-term high, maybe, but leads to delusion, repression, fragility.
Okay, denial. What's the second?
Victim mentality. Believing there's nothing you can do. Blaming everyone else, blaming circumstances.
The it's not my fault trap.
Exactly. Again, maybe a temporary relief, feeling righteous, but it ultimately leads to anger, helplessness, despair. You get stuck. The source stresses that emotions. They're just signals, biological nudges towards change. They aren't, like, gospel truth.
So if denial and victimhood are traps, even though they might feel okay for a bit, this leads to that really powerful question the source poses. It's not, what do you want out of life?
Right.
It's, what pain do you want? What are you willing to struggle for?
That really cuts to the chase, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests that defines us more than our desires, our willingness to endure.
Exactly. And it means you have to love the process, the struggle itself, not just dream about the outcome. The author gives his own example, dreaming of being a rock star, loved the idea of it,
The image, yeah.
but didn't love the actual grind, the practice, the hauling gear, playing empty rooms.
The day-to-day stuff.
Right. He wasn't in love with the process. And the source argues who you really are. That's defined by what you are willing to struggle through day in, day out.
This idea of accepting struggle, it connects to this character the source introduces, Jimmy, this guy who's like the embodiment of the self-esteem movement gone wrong.
Oh, yeah, Jimmy. All positivity all the time.
Always talking big game, right?
Yeah.
Consulting firms, apps, investors.
But in reality, total deadbeat. Living off people, stoned, spending money at bars, not on business plans.
And just overflowing with this delusional self-confidence. Anyone critical is just a hater.
Exactly. And the source uses Jimmy to critique the self-esteem movement that really took off in the 60s. The problem was, it measured self-worth by how positively people felt about themselves.
Which sounds good on the surface.
But, the source argues, a true measure of self-worth is maybe how people feel about their negative parts, their flaws, their mistakes. Can you own them?
Ah, interesting distinction.
Because just telling everyone they're exceptional, giving out participation trophies, inflating grades, it doesn't create Bill Gates's, it creates Jimmy's.
Right, because statistically, most of us are average at most things. That's just math.
It is. But we're bombarded by media, showing only the extraordinary, the top 0.1%. So we feel inadequate, insecure. And that breeds entitlement, unhealthy coping mechanisms, always needing validation.
So the counterintuitive, but maybe liberating truth here is, accept your mediocrity. That sounds harsh.
It does sound harsh, but the source frames it as liberating. Like, okay, I'm average at most things, and that's fine. Because the people who do become exceptional, they rarely start out thinking they are exceptional.
They're focused on getting better.
Exactly. They're obsessed with improvement, which comes from believing, deep down, that they're not that great at all right now.
That's what the source calls anti-entitlement.
Yeah. It lets you be honest about where you fall short, which is step one to actually improving.
Okay, so this honesty, this acceptance, it leads into values, right? How we choose what matter.
Precisely. Good values, the source says, are based in reality. They're constructive socially. And crucially, they're immediate and controllable.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Honesty, creativity, vulnerability, standing up for yourself, curiosity, humility, things you can do right now.
Okay. And bad values.
They tend to be superstitious, destructive, or outside your direct control. Like pleasure above all else. Material success is the main goal. Always needing to be right. Forcing positivity.
Chasing things that are fleeting or depend on others.
Right. And prioritizing those bad values. That leads to shitty problems, as the source bluntly puts it.
Oh, okay.
Like research shows, beyond basic needs being met, more money doesn't really equal more happiness. Killing yourself for that extra $10K a year often doesn't actually improve your well-being much, if at all.
So, okay, problems are inevitable. Our values shape the kind of problems we have. Good values, better problems. How do we then take these problems and, instead of being crushed by them, make them sources of strength? The source uses a great analogy here.
The marathon one.
Yeah, running 26.2 miles. If someone forced you, gun to your head, terrifying, miserable. But running that exact same distance by choice, after training, with people cheering, it feels glorious, powerful.
That's a great illustration.
What's the difference? It's that sense of choice and responsibility.
When problems feel forced on us, we feel like victims. When we choose our struggles, even hard ones, we feel empowered.
Which leads to this really central, maybe challenging idea in the source.
Which is?
That we are individually responsible for everything in our lives.
Right.
Regardless of external circumstances.
Whoa. Okay, that's a big one. Because we don't always control what happens, right?
Exactly. We don't control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret it and how we respond. Always.
And that control over interpretation and response, that's where the power lies.
That's the argument. With great responsibility comes great power. Taking ownership is the first step to actually solving anything.
But people often mix up responsibility and fault, don't they?
Yeah, and the source makes a really useful distinction. Fault is about the past. Responsibility is about the present. Like the example, someone hits your car. It's their fault. They are to blame.
Right.
But say a baby is left on your doorstep. It's not your fault the baby is there. You didn't cause it.
Right.
But that baby is now your responsibility. What you choose to do next, that's on you. The consequences flow from your choices.
Okay, so fault looks backward, responsibility looks forward.
Exactly. The author shares his own story, too, about a really painful breakup. His ex cheated. He realized, yeah, she was to blame for the cheating, for that situation, but he was responsible for his own misery afterwards. His feelings, his reactions, and ultimately for making himself happy again.
That's tough, but empowering if you can grasp it. It stops you from being stuck just blaming.
Right, because fault is past tense. Responsibility is always present tense. It's about what you do now.
And the source mentions this modern trend, victimhood chic.
Yeah, it touches on that. How the internet, social media, it makes it really easy to offload responsibility, to blame others for even small things.
The outrage pee, as it calls it.
Right. Gives you that quick hit of feeling morally superior, maybe.
But it distracts from real problems, doesn't help actual victims, and keeps everyone spinning their wheels.
So I bet a lot of listeners are thinking, okay, fine, I get it conceptually, but how? How do I actually change? How do I take responsibility? How do I choose better values?
Yeah, the how question. And the source's answer is, well, kind of blunt, almost Yoda-like.
Which...
Do or do not. There is no how.
Huh. Okay. Simple, but maybe not easy.
Exactly. It argues change is fundamentally simple. You just choose to give a F about something different. Choose to value something else. It's simple, but it's not easy. Because it feels awkward. You'll feel like a failure, a fraud, uncertain.
You'll face rejection, maybe.
Definitely. Especially if your old relationships were kind of built around your old, maybe less healthy values. Change rocks the boat.
And this uncertainty, it's actually important, isn't it? The source talks about being wrong.
Yeah, this idea that we're wrong about everything, but so am I. It's provocative.
Growth isn't about getting it right, finally. It's iterative.
It's an endlessly iterative process. Going from wrong to slightly less wrong to slightly less wrong again. We're always approaching truth, but maybe never fully arrive.
Which means certainty. That's the enemy.
Certainty is the enemy of growth, according to this view. We should actually seek doubt. Doubt about our own cherished beliefs, our feelings.
Why? Because our brains aren't perfect recorders of reality.
Not even close. They're biased. They confabulate. The source points to things like the false memory syndrome scares in the 80s. People developed entirely false, yet deeply believed memories. Shows how unreliable our certainty can be.
Wow. That's humbling and scary.
It is. And it leads to this other idea, Manson's law of avoidance.
Okay, what's that?
The more something threatens your identity, how you see yourself, the more you will avoid it.
So change is threatening, even positive change, like success.
Absolutely. Success can be as scary as failure because it forces you to question who you thought you were. Am I really the kind of person who can achieve this?
So the goal isn't to find yourself or know who you are, because that self is maybe flawed or limiting.
Exactly. The source flips it. It's not about finding yourself, it's about losing yourself. Or rather, killing that fixed psychological self, letting go of these arbitrary mental boxes we build.
Okay. So if we let go of certainty, let go of a fixed self, what do we do?
That brings us to the do something principle.
The do something principle, that sounds actionable. Tell me more.
It basically flips the script on motivation. We usually think motivation comes first, then action. I need to feel inspired before I can act.
Right. Wait for the muse.
Yeah. But this principle says action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's also the cause.
Action causes motivation.
Yes. If you're stuck, unmotivated, just do something. Anything. Even something small related to the goal. And that action itself will often generate the inspiration and motivation to do the next thing.
Like the author starting his blog just by writing, even badly at first.
Exactly. Or the novelist who committed to just 200 crappy words a day. That small action snowballed into novels. It builds momentum. Don't wait. Just start.
This idea of action and commitment, it ties into what the author learned from all his traveling, right? The digital nomad years.
Yeah, 55 countries. Sounds amazing.
But he realized absolute freedom by itself means nothing. It was empty after a while. He found real meaning, deeper satisfaction, only when he chose to limit his freedom by committing to one place, one person, one kind of work, rejecting the alternatives.
That rejection part is key, isn't it? Especially for us in the West, where we often avoid saying no or drawing lines, the fake nice culture.
Right.
But the source argues, to truly value something X, you have to reject non-X. You have to choose. Commitment, choosing what not to pursue, is what gives value to what you do choose. It defines your identity.
Otherwise, you just drift, chasing endless options.
You know, like a dilettante, never finding depth because you're afraid to close doors. That avoidance, often rooted in entitlement, leads to a shallow life.
And this applies massively to relationships, doesn't it? Healthy versus unhealthy love.
Hugely. Healthy love, in this view, is when two people take responsibility for their own stuff, their own problems, and they're willing to say no to each other, to have boundaries.
Right.
To reject and be rejected sometimes.
Okay. And unhealthy love.
That's often about trying to escape your problems through the other person, using them as a distraction or a solution, marked by poor boundaries, trying to fix each other, inability to handle disagreement.
In conflict. It's actually necessary. That feels wrong.
It does, but think about it. If you can't openly disagree, hash things out. Is the relationship real? Or is it built on manipulation, on hiding things? Trust deepens when you know the other person can say no, can disagree, and the love is still there. It's not conditional on constant agreement.
That makes sense. Like the paradox of choice idea, more options doesn't always mean more happiness.
Right? Commitment, narrowing your focus, paradoxically often leads to greater depth, satisfaction, and success in the long run, whether it's relationships, career, whatever.
Wow. Okay, this has all been building. And the source brings it all together with this incredibly personal story at the end.
The death of his friend, Josh.
Yeah. At a party, suddenly, when the author was just 19. Traumatic.
Clearly a pivotal moment.
He calls it a clear before and after. It somehow gave him permission to actually live, to drop the insecurities, become more responsible, more curious.
And those words from the dream.
Josh saying, "Why do you care that I'm dead when you're still so afraid to live?" Powerful stuff. Became his mantra.
And this ties directly into the work of Ernest Becker, right? The denial of death.
Pulitzer winner, yeah. What was Becker's core idea?
That humans are unique because we know we're going to die. We can conceptualize our own non-existence. And this knowledge creates a deep underlying anxiety, death terror. So to cope, we build these conceptual selves, our identities, our egos, and we pursue immortality projects, things we hope will make our existence meaningful, make us live on symbolically.
Like our career, family, legacy, art, contributing to a cause.
Exactly. All the ways we try to make a mark, to feel like our lives matter beyond our physical death. Becker argued this to drive essentially build civilization.
So these immortality projects, they're our way of coping with death terror, trying to leave something behind.
Right. But then Becker apparently had this realization near the end of his own life.
Which was?
That these immortality projects, they often become the problem. They're the source of our neuroses, our anxieties, our destructive behavior sometimes.
Whoa, so the coping mechanism becomes the new problem.
Kind of, yeah. The source suggests that embracing impermanence, accepting death, not giving a F about the superficial legacy stuff, actually reduces that entitled striving. Death is the only certainty, so it should be the compass, the thing against which we measure all other values.
If we ignore death, trivial things take over.
That's the idea. We lose perspective.
So the ultimate message then about happiness, it's not about the self.
It seems to be about caring for something greater than yourself, feeling like you're part of something bigger, contributing to a larger whole, even if it's unknowable.
And that connects us, whereas entitlement isolates us.
Exactly. Entitlement puts you at the center of the universe, which is a lonely place where all problems revolve around you. Being part of something a larger community, cause, family, humanity, diffuses that pressure.
But then there's this final twist. The source says, you are great already. How does that fit if it's not about achievement?
It's not greatness like you built an app or you have a fancy boat.
Right.
It's the greatness of being human, of facing this confusing existence, this certain death, and still choosing. Choosing what to care about, what to value, what struggles to embrace. That act of choosing in the face of everything, that is the greatness.
So confronting mortality doesn't have to be depressing. It can be freeing.
That's the final point. It lightens the load, makes it easier to drop addictions, ditch entitlement, own your problems, face your fears, like the author on the cliff edge, accepting the possibility of falling and feeling utterly alive, very alive. It's an embrace of reality, finitude, and all.
We've definitely covered some uncomfortable ground today, but also, yeah, profoundly liberating ideas, I think. This deep dive really suggests a good life isn't about dodging pain or chasing constant positivity or needing to be special.
No, it seems much more about courage, choosing your struggles,
Oh.
accepting you're not perfect, taking responsibility for how you react to things, living with uncertainty, and really defining yourself by what you're willing to say no to in order to say yes to what truly counts.
So the ultimate takeaway feels like in this world yelling at us to want more, be more, the real art is maybe caring about less,
Hmm.
but caring more deeply about the few things that are true and immediate and important.
Giving your few F's wisely.
Exactly. And using that awareness of mortality, not morbidly, but as a lens to see what really has value. So for you listening, Allie, maybe the reflection is, what struggles are you truly willing to choose? And maybe just as important, what are you willing to say no to clear the space for what actually gives your life depth and meaning? Something to think about.